Let's continue. And he brought the ark into the tabernacle and set up the veil of the covering and covered the ark of the testimony, as the Lord commanded Moses. 22. And he put the table in the tent of the congregation upon the side of the tabernacle northwards. The side there northwards, that's of critical importance. Here we acknowledge the table being placed on the north side, right, without the veil. 23. And he set the bread in order upon it before the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses. 24. And he put the candlestick in the tent of the congregation over against the table on the side of the tabernacle southwards. Right, it continues by saying, and he lighted the lamps before the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses. 26. And he put the golden altar in the tent of the congregation before the veil. 27. And he burnt sweet incense thereon, as the Lord commanded Moses. 28. And he set upon the hanging at the door of the tabernacle. 29. And he put the altar of burnt offering by the door of the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation, and offered upon it a burnt offering, and the meat offering, as the Lord commanded Moses. 30. And he set the laver between the tent of the congregation and the altar, and put water there to wash withal. So God gives instructions on how the sanctuary is supposed to be built. We've asked the Old Testament. The Old Testament said definitely, right? The Old Testament said definitely, I indoctrinate ethnology, I indoctrinate humanity, Christendom about the sanctuary. It's something that they need to acknowledge, something that they need to understand the importance and the significance of the sanctuary. So the Bible clearly points out there is what we call a sanctuary, right? Now that's the Old Testament. There is what we call a sanctuary. In fact, it goes on to call it the tabernacle of God, or the temple of God. And then we see that there are some instruments, or there are some furniture that are installed, right? Northwards, we acknowledge that there was a table of shewbread, right? Or the table, or the table that they would actually put bread on, and that the 12 loaves of bread signified the 12 children of Israel. And we acknowledge on the south side that there were 7 candle lampsticks, and those 7 candle lampsticks, they were supposed to be kept burned. Hence, Moses lighted the candle lampsticks. Constantly, these candle lampsticks, they were supposed to keep or kept burning with a pure olive oil, right? Constantly in the sanctuary, they were supposed to be kept burning. Then we acknowledge that there was what we call the altar of burnt incense, right? Then we acknowledge that there was what we call the laver, then the altar of burning sacrifice. So those were the instruments that were actually installed. And then we acknowledge the ark, when Moses placed the ark in the other veil, right? When we'll be speaking about the other veil, right? So this is the plan and the design on how God wanted Moses to build the sanctuary. So the Old Testament, it agrees. Boom. Definitely, I acknowledge and I indoctrinate. Now let's move on the New Testament. What does the New Testament have to say about the sanctuary? Let's acknowledge in the book of Hebrews chapter 9 verse 1. Then verily the first covenant and also ordinances of divine service and a worldly sanctuary. Wow. So the New Testament is in fact concatenating, right? Or it is now parenthesizing it, right? Saying that it is also called the worldly sanctuary. Wow. So the testaments of God, right? The witnesses of God, the Old Testament and the New Testament. These two witnesses, they witness on to say, definitely we both concur each other. And we are saying to ethnology or to Christendom that the importance of the sanctuary